back to A Speck of Hope. I see a bunch of familiar faces. This is so great to see you all again. Let's start in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, we love you above all things. Glorious is your name. Please, as you said in Matthew chapter 8, when two or more are gathered in your name, there you are in the midst of them. Lord, come and join us today. Join us in our conversation. Join us in our discussion on community. Help us to realize that we're all in this together. Everyone here on this earth. This is one big community. But more specifically, this people who are here today, this is A Speck of Hope. This organization was put up through your word, through your intention. Lord, help us to foster a great discussion. Help us to truly internalize a sense of community and help move our hearts to understand the impact and the opportunities and the possibilities that we can grow from this with your help. We ask this through the prayer in which your Son taught us to be praying. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. All right, we're going to do this a little different today. Instead of like reading from a script, this is going to be fun. So why are we all here? We're here because A Speck of Hope is an opportunity. It's a chance for freedom. It's a chance for freedom with anxiety. It's a chance for freedom with mental health. What does that look like? Well, today that looks like a community. It's like the opportunity to be with each other, not to take it on ourselves. My brother, when he developed Tourette's back in high school, Tourette's, if you don't know, that's a condition where all of a sudden you start to tick and have some uncontrollable movements. And he also has those verbal tics, so he would say things that he doesn't mean, he never intended to say, but it would just come out. When that started, his life changed. And sometimes there were some people, I mean, this was high school, right? There were some people that didn't take it well. He had friends that he had to let go because those friends weren't supportive through those tough times. And there are other friends where he had to create boundaries where he couldn't open up. But then there's that one guy who he was truly able to be himself around. This one guy, he understood that that new condition, that new way of being that became a part of him, it didn't change his personality, it didn't change who he was. In fact, it helped him grow and become a better friend. And so that one friend that took him in, my brother's name is Nick, his good friend Matt, those two became each other's ground. That became each other's community. And that ultimately saved my brother. He now had that opportunity to truly be himself with people that truly made him happy, truly found that community. So, honestly, we all have our moments, right? Do we allow others in when the going gets tough? Do we kind of sit with it and let that pain fester? Our safety manager once said that when the going gets tough, when all of a sudden you're faced with something that might be, how do I say? Yeah, our safety manager once said, when there's an emergency out there, what do? But rather your gut reaction is to lean back in your training, right? Well, we have an awesome trainer here today, Big Stone Therapies. Let's give it up for Kelly Wittenbel.
Welcome. Thank you for having me come back to talk about a topic that gave me a little bit of anxiety, not gonna lie. Community. What is community? What is community to you? Anybody want to be brave enough to say what community means to them?
The people you go to when the times are really tough.
Okay?
And
very good. Anything else? Does community have to be a big group of people? No. It could be like TJ said with his brother, it could be one good friend. My community with the craziness that I do is Regina. We are a crazy community together who do things outside of the box in therapy that a lot of other people don't do. That's community, right? And we can have multiple communities. And so in this discussion, I'm going to ad-lib a lot, probably. God's been putting a few things in my path that I feel compelled to bring up. And Regina's too. We did a wellness talk along this line to some Big Stone Therapies employees, which was really profound. And so this video that we're going to start with has to do with the marbles and trust. And I think starting with a video about trust and what does that mean can lead us into a lot of the other topics that we're going to talk about today. Remember that I'm informal, so if you have questions, please ask them when you have them, and I'll answer them to the best of your capability, or I'll turn to Regina. Okay? Sign up for this. What's he gonna play? Is that what you're looking at me for?
I've heard about your marble jar theory, so we've got a jar of marbles.
I saw that.
Could you explain to me your theory?
This is how we teach trust. Where do I get my information? Ellen's in 4th grade, my oldest. She comes home from school. She slides down the door into a heap, sobbing. Oh my God, Ellen, are you okay? Are you hurt? What's going on? Something hard happened. She shared it very confidentially with 1 or 2 of her friends. They had told everybody in her class, all 30 kids. Everybody was laughing and pointing and making fun of her. And she said, I will never trust anyone again. And my mind was damn straight, good person. You trust your mama, and that's it. That's not the right thing to do, right? You want a kid who can develop trust with others. So I said, trust is really hard. She said, I don't understand it. I said, trust is the marble jar. Every time you share something with someone that's confidential and they don't share it, they get a marble. When you want to share something really private and personal, you look for a friend whose jar is full of marbles. Do you have any marble jar friends? And she said, Hannah and Lorna. And I said, why? They've got big marble jars that are full. And I said, this was why. It was crazy. Tell me something they do to earn marbles. Oh, well, like if I get to my tray late at lunch and there's no place to sit, Lorna will scoot over and give me half her seat and I can sit at the table. And then the other day, when I had strep throat, Hannah was worried about me. So remember, her mom called and said, Hannah's worried about Ellen. Why wasn't she at school? But then the biggest thing that Hannah did was the other day, Oma and Opa, my parents, came to my soccer game, and Hannah looked over and goes, oh my God, your Oma and Opa are here. And I said, why was that a big deal? And she goes, because everybody's divorced and remarried, and I've got 4 sets of people, and she remembered their names. And what was shocking to me is that Ellen was conveying that these marbles were being earned on these very small, she knew my grandparents' name. She gave me a seat to sit at. She checked on me when I was missing school. Trust is built slowly over time, a marble at a time. And that's how we teach trust to the most senior leaders in Fortune 100 companies. Leaders believe that in the middle of a crisis, you can just look at your people and say, trust me, here's what we're gonna do. And it means nothing to people. What matters is a leader that walks past you in the morning and says, hey, good to see Stephen, how's your mom's chemo going? Marbles, marbles. Then when the crisis happens, you don't need to say, trust me. You just need to say what's on your mind, they trust you.
I've heard about your marble jar theory.
So I found that to be really true about who we trust, right? And why do we trust them? Or why do we not trust people? And how can we as leaders, mentors, adults to children, teach them trust and teach each other trust, one marble at a time, right? One marble at a time. And why do do I give Regina a marble? She showed up for me today without me asking her to, which I appreciate, right? She supports me, and I trust her, right? And it's finding those people and being that person that people can trust. In our communities, in our groups, in our families, teaching trust is really important. So you had to count the marbles. There were 76 marbles in my jar. TJ was the closest. TJ gets to pick. Gratitude. Okay. And I gotta stand firm. There's this great little coffee shop in Dawson, Minnesota that has the best Christian stuff in just a little hidden section. And I do enjoy it. So it's a stand firm, putting the full armor of God. And Regina's just gonna pull one of the other names out of there and get this book. I don't know if it's a Bible study, it's verses. Annalise? Nice. There you go. And I thank you all for showing up to listen to me speak again. I do appreciate that. And I'm very grateful for that. So, again, I'm Kelly Wittenbel. I work for Big Stone Therapies. Worked for them for 29 years in many different facets. But my newfound path is chronic pain, behavioral health, and just helping people find hope. So I appreciate this group. All right. So the last time we talked a little bit about the individual stress continuum. Remember, these are the areas that we all kind of ebb and flow in and out of. Mostly, green, yellow. Sometimes we will get into that orange area. Hopefully, if we get to the critical area, we're finding somebody that we can trust to help us get back into those safer zones. And using some of the techniques and skills that we've discussed over the last few times that I've been here to help you when you're struggling. Remember, we all have struggles. We all have good times. We all have bad times, and we all need community and support in those times. Vulnerability. What does it mean to be vulnerable? And what do you mean to be vulnerable? Vulnerable. Huh?
Encourage.
Encourage.
No, you need courage to be vulnerable. And vulnerability.
Oh, you
is
need courage.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm hard hearing today.
Me too.
Yeah, you need courage, right?
Yeah.
Vulnerability is putting yourself out there in a situation that makes you uncomfortable, makes you uneasy. Kind of how I started my talk, right? Hey, I may cry, I'm a crier sometimes, putting yourself out there and being vulnerable. But that's not always easy to do if we don't have the trust that we talked about, okay? So, is vulnerability a weakness? Some people think it is. If you're vulnerable to illness, or you're vulnerable to harassment, or you're vulnerable to those kind of things, some people look at that as a weakness, right? But it is your authentic self. It's who you are, right? It allows us to make connections. It allows us to grow. It allows us to show empathy. And we're going to talk about the difference between empathy and sympathy and what does that look like. It fosters good emotional and mental health when we can be vulnerable and be okay with that. And it leads to a more productive work environment. If you don't trust the people you work with, and you can't be vulnerable with those people. If I'm having a bad day, instead of saying when my dad's dying, I'm okay, I'm okay. No, I'm not okay. I'm broken today, and that's okay, right? That's a safe place to be. That's the place I want to work. For me, that's the company I work for, or I would have not stayed here for 29 years. If I didn't feel safe and I didn't feel that I could be vulnerable and say I'm not okay, and I wouldn't let Regina come work. Connection. I define connection as the energy that exists between two people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. When they can give and receive without judgment. And when they derive sustenance and strength from a relationship. That's pretty profound. I'm seen, I'm heard, I'm understood, and I'm not judged. And that is a connection, and that takes trust. So examples of vulnerability, sharing unpopular opinions. We don't have to, I don't know what happened to our world. Where did we lose the ability to disagree about something and that not be okay? Just because you and I don't have the same faith, I do want to say, I have to be very careful when we say the Lord's Prayer. Because
in the room who get nervous.
I'm not Catholic, and I'm like, oh my gosh, where does it stop? Where do they not go where I go? Because I don't want to be the only one talking. Okay? and that's okay, right? But that might be unpopular with some people, right? That's being vulnerable. That's me saying, thank goodness I'm not the only one in the room that questioned where I was supposed to stop. So, asking for help. How easy is it to ask for help? I really struggle with that one. As well as the next one, saying no and setting boundaries. It's hard to say no if you're a people pleaser. But if we don't set our boundaries and say no, we find ourselves down a path that cannot be the best source of ourselves.
I was in a listening group. I was listening to a group asking a question a week ago of lay ministers. The question came up of creeping responsibilities. Like you're serving a congregation and temporarily, and they keep adding more and more and more. And somebody, like, how do you say no? And some person said, recently they have heard the expression, I don't have the capacity to add that. This is a very polite way. I don't have the capacity to add that request to my schedule right now.
I will use a personal example. A couple of months ago, I'm taking a class, I'm doing this, I'm doing a class with Regina, and my manager asked me to do a presentation to all of BST on a sports thing. And I said, I'm not good at PowerPoints. I do not have the capacity. I did use that word. I don't feel that I would do a good job, and I am not able at this point. And it was in November, and I got to October 31st, and I went, whew, glad I set that boundary because I don't know how I would have pulled that off. And so it is okay to say no to some things, right? And thank you for asking me. I feel honored that you asked me, but no, that's being vulnerable. Falling in love is being vulnerable, right? Sometimes we make the right choice, sometimes we don't make the right choice. Getting fired, that doesn't happen. Getting pregnant after a miscarriage, being accountable to others. And a big one, which is really hard, asking for forgiveness. It's not easy to say, hey, I'm sorry, I screwed up. right? We're human. We're human beings, and we do make mistakes. So asking for forgiveness, because we are forgiven, right? And so asking for forgiveness can help us and is a way of showing vulnerability. So sharing our feelings. Does vulnerability mean oversharing or purging? Have you ever been around that person who they just talk and talk and talk about them, no matter what it is? That's not vulnerability. That's covering up for things that we don't want to maybe acknowledge or deal with. And when I get nervous, I probably am here oversharing. It's sharing our feelings and our experiences with people who have earned the right to hear them. So how do I recognize my vulnerability? So look at these questions. What do I do when I feel emotionally exposed? How do I behave when I feel very uncomfortable or am uncertain? And how willing am I to take an emotional risk? How difficult is it to see how you behave in these situations? Sometimes it's really hard for us to see that. But ask someone that you live with or that you work with, and they will tell you how you behave. Yeah, someone you trust. Right? Thoughts? Questions? If you are not asking what's important to you, maybe because it's you don't think that you are worth it. Interesting thought. Okay? All right, so I gave you, everybody have 1-inch piece of paper? What are you looking for? 1 inch? You lost your 1-inch piece of paper. You lost it. Did anybody else lose their 1-inch piece of paper that I told him not to lose? Didn't I tell you not to lose it?
I lost it.
Okay. On this 1-inch piece of paper, you're going to write who the most important people are that you would trust enough to be vulnerable to. Right? So if I'm trying to make a tough decision, should I, shouldn't I? Where should I go? What should I do? How should I behave? Should I wear that anxiety costume to that Speck of Hope meeting? Who would you trust enough to tell you the truth? And how would they react? And that's all that matters. Are those people on that piece of paper? Because we worry a lot about what John Doe down the street is going to think about what we do or say, or what our coworkers are going to do. But are they on your piece of paper? Are they the people who matter to you? It's not a very big piece of paper. And I got big handwriting. I don't even know if I could fit my husband's name on that piece of paper. What? Oh, just a W. That would cover my entire family. Great idea. Okay? So put it in your wallet or your purse and carry it with you. And when you have a tough decision, Who does it matter to when you make that decision? If it would affect them or hurt them, it might be a decision you don't want to make. So, I'll give you a little bit of time if you want to write. You aren't sharing that with anybody but yourself. Okay? All right. Yep. What's the difference between belonging and fitting in? Belonging is I get to be me. I get to be Kelly. Fitting in is I have to be like you. Well, I don't fit in. Like putting a round peg in a square hole, right? Is that what's important to me? Used to be. Used to be. I didn't fit in, didn't want to fit. I mean, felt bad when I didn't fit in, or I'm not in this group or that group or whatever. As I've grown, I want to belong. Like me for who I am. I'm not for everybody. That's what my sister says. I'm not for everybody. And that's okay. So. What?
Where do you know? I'm ready to do it though.
Oh, many notes. Yeah, it's not on here.
I know, because it's in the notes. That's why I'm writing it.
Oh, I can't see the notes. That's why I brought her.
It's in the notes.
That's why I brought her. I'm like, you're writing me a note.
I'm ready to do it.
Okay, what's the difference between alone, being alone, and being lonely and loneliness?
Loneliness is more of a feeling. I mean, you feel like a leak.
Okay, that's perfect. Do you have to be alone to have loneliness? No. We can be in a huge group of people, 300 people, and that might be the loneliest we ever are. And did you know, and I'll get to our stats in a minute, but did you know that Gen Zs, with all of their connections, and this makes my skin crawl a little bit, are the loneliest generation of all of the generations. They are connected to everything. They have AI. They are lonely. And that makes my heart hurt because we need to help them not be lonely and find that mentor or that person that can help them.
Personal touch is not part of electronically, all the apps.
Right, and you can read a lot into it, right? Do you know if I send you a text and tell you something, do you really know what I'm feeling inside? Versus if I have a one-on-one conversation with you, you can tell what context that's coming in, right? You can watch my facial expressions, you can hear my tone of voice, you can maybe pick up on some things. And you know, our patients will say to Regina and I, our other coworkers, I should say, how did you get somebody to tell you that, right? Because people will tell us things that they probably don't tell other people. But if I'm texting them or whatever, if I'm on an electronic device, I can't truly see that person for who they are. And I also can't refrain, did I hear you say that correctly? Right? So there's something about a personal conversation that we have lost in our world of technology. that I think is crucial in what I'm gonna use from bringing the stats. So loneliness increases your risk of death. So how much do you think air pollution increases your risk of death? What percent?
So like I moved from someplace clean air to a city with dirty air.
Yeah, so like air pollution, if you live in Millbank, South Dakota versus living in Chicago, what percentage increase of death you have? You said 3%? What'd you say? 5%. It's 5%. Is that what she said? 5%, yeah. What about obesity? If you're obese, what is your death? Okay, I heard 10. It's higher than that. It's lower than 25, but higher than 10. 20%. Excessive drinking. Higher. 30. Loneliness.
65.
Lower.
45.
45. Your risk of death from being lonely is 45%. How often do you see these couples who have been married, God bless their souls, 65 years, and one dies and the other one dies within a week of that person without any health issues? Loneliness. Yeah, literally. Yeah. And they don't have hope, right? They don't have community. And so helping people to overcome loneliness and finding hope, especially our younger generation, is what I feel. I feel classes, groups like this need to start in elementary school. We just had a 12-year-old commit suicide in our community. 12 years old. That also makes my skin crawl. That sucks. And so how can we be that breath of hope? How can we help them to find hope and peace in the loneliness? And be there for each other when you know somebody's struggling. When my mom lost my dad, people are around for the first 2 weeks. And then people quit calling. They quit asking you to do things. Your kids don't live there. And so, don't forget about those people that have lost. And then we're going to talk about empathy versus simply being grateful. Thank you for that. That was good. Thanks for looking at your notes. I know you can't, so thanks for sharing. How can we expect people to put value on our work when we don't value ourselves enough to set and hold comfortable boundaries? Setting our boundaries and sticking to it. I struggle with boundaries, especially at work. My work life, do not do what I do. My work life balance isn't great. I'm working on it, but it's really easy for me to say, nope, I'll do that. And not be home one night during the week to support my family. So set good boundaries for your own health. We talked about that. 10 to 30 minutes a day for yourself to do something you enjoy that gives you peace and hope. You can help everybody else around you. You can't pour from an empty cup. Okay. So we all have that person in our lives that just frustrates you, disappoints you. Maybe it's resentment. My person just makes me feel stupid every time they talk to me. Like I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough. We all have them. and we talked about bubbles. Right? But, you know, a mentor of mine taught me a really great technique, which includes bubble blowing. But I got him. Right? Okay? I can take that frustration out onto something and get it out of my head instead of letting it fester. Because we're not going to get along with everybody, right? We're going to have those people that rub us the wrong way for whatever reason. So take your bubbles and just pop them a little bit. Or maybe it's a situation that has you upset, okay? The feeling wheel is not in the presentation, but I think this is a good segue into. Oh, yeah, I forgot that.
No, that's okay. That's
She reminded
I'm
me
looking at the notes.
that to remember that that person is doing the best they can with the information they have available too. So we do need to show people grace. So the feeling wheel is an interesting thing. And so you can start from the outside and go in, or you can start from the inside and go out. And so people will sometimes say, well, I'm not angry, I'm jealous, okay? And you see as you start on the outside, if you find a word, so I picked jealous, it's one of my things I struggle with. So jealous and furious are next to each other. And if you go in towards the center of the circle, it makes me mad, and mad then turns to anger. So anger can sometimes be a subconscious emotion that we're not aware we even have. I sometimes use this with patients and say, okay, look at the inner circle. Which of these are you feeling? Okay? Oh, I feel fearful. Okay, now let's look at the next circle. So in fearful, does it mean I'm scared, I'm anxious, I'm insecure, I'm weak, I'm rejected, or I'm threatened? And I had a patient tell me I'm anxious. Okay, then anxious is broke up into overwhelmed and worried. And so if I can break it down into overwhelmed and worried, what is overwhelming me? What am I worrying about? And what tools do I have, or resources or community do I have that I can help, that can help me with that? Because suppressed emotions come out in physical symptoms. And that's not just pain. That can be headaches, it can be dizziness, it can be diarrhea, it can be constipation, it can physical symptom or emotional symptoms come out in physical symptoms. And so hopefully the color wheel, and I brought crayons if you wanted to color, because that's a calming effect, right? But maybe just looking at it and going, you know, where am I today? You know, am I happy today? Why am I happy today? Why is today? It could vary every day. But we all have emotions inside of us. If you haven't watched that movie Inside Out, it talks about all the different emotions that we all have, and it's really very real. Sometimes anxiety is rearing her ugly head, sometimes jealousy, sometimes sadness. What am I feeling today? And what positive coping skill have I learned in these classes to help me with what I'm feeling? Oh, okay. Nice. She's one step ahead of me. Okay, any questions on the feeling wheel? All right, so what's the difference between sympathy and empathy? Anybody want to take a shot at it?
Empathy is empathizing with someone, sympathy is just feeling bad.
Okay.
Well, empathy is, I understand where you're coming from. I get what you're feeling.
Okay.
I've been there myself where I know what you've experienced.
Okay. Anything else? Before we watch the video? Okay. Alright. Kind of a crazy video, I don't know.
So what is empathy and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came to 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, I'm down. I know what it's like down here. And you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. I had it, yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. At least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So, empathy builds connection. And so, we have to sometimes feel things that maybe we don't want to admit that we felt, right? And I think that's why counseling groups, or groups like this, allow us to show empathy, right? I've been there. And how can we help somebody else who might be feeling that same thing and make that connection and let them know, I have a speck of hope. It's okay. Because once we lose hope, it's tough. And it gets pretty dark. It's hard to find our way back. So, empathy helps us see others' perspectives. It helps us communicate how we feel. It helps us bounce back and forth in stressful situations. So we give and we take. Resilience. We recover quickly from adversity. So developing resilience is positive thinking. Finding, if you were here one of the first times that I talked about my dad's situation and how I found positives in that situation and it made me feel better about that situation. It didn't make it go away, it didn't make the yuck go away, but finding some positives gave me a little bit of peace that I really need. And helps us develop problem-solving skills, and it gives us a strong support. Okay? Just writing out loud. Questions about resilience? Good thing, okay. How do you convey empathy? How do you convey that you are empathetic to someone?
Listen and relate.
What?
Not try to fix, listen and relate.
I'm trying to fix it. But looking at them, right? Eye to eye, that's hard to look somebody in the eye when they're struggling with something.
Especially when your face says stuff out loud.
True, true. So we have to be self-aware of our body language, right? But we look at them, you may lean in, right? You may change your tone of voice. I'm a military girl, right? And so I talk to my military guy patients different than I do some of my other patients. And I had a student say to me once, "Do you always talk to your patients that way?" And I'm like, well, I know this guy's a tough military guy, and if I say, "Oh, TJ, come on, let's do this exercise," he's gonna tell me, there's the door. But if I come in and I say, "Hey, TJ, how's it going? You old cuss." You know, I mean, I might not say that to him, but that's how they work better, right? So you have to read your room, and you have to, that's building a therapeutic alliance with people, is being able to change your tone and how you speak to people by how you're gonna get that reaction. That's showing empathy. It might be a light touch. Remember, we all have zones, right? Touch for some people is sometimes asking you can touch them, right? Facial expressions. So be aware of your own. I believe Regina called me out on eye rolling once, and I don't even think I was rolling eyes. I was thinking, and sometimes my thinking head looks like I'm mad because I'm like, the wheels in my head are turning, but orienting, right? But if it's something that we're trying, this is like more confrontational versus if I sit next to you, is it more we're working together? Okay? Also, and I've learned this in the nursing home, or with a child. If I talk to you from here, I'm dominating you. But if I get down here to your level and now we're at the same level and we're having a conversation and I'm looking you in the eye and saying, TJ, we need to work on this. Am I going to get a better response because I'm now at his level? I'm looking him in the eye and I'm having a conversation depending on what that is. And then, do you feel heard? If I'm like looking at my paper and writing notes and you're talking to me, and this is where point of service documentation for me is a struggle sometimes because we have to do it. But if I'm typing on my computer and I'm never looking at you or talking to you or listening to you, do you feel heard? No. Yeah. So sometimes it's taking a step and listening, repeating what they're saying. You know, did I hear you say that correctly? Oh, no, you got it all wrong, Kelly. Oh, could you tell me again? So we don't put our own perspective on things, right? It can be, those tactics can be really very helpful. So, I like love notes. same experience, right? I may not have been sexually assaulted, but I'm talking to someone who has. But I've had times when I felt sad, unworthy, alone, vulnerable. Okay, I can still be empathetic to that person and what they're feeling in whatever that is they're living in, versus sympathetic. Does that make sense? Hopefully those were some tips on how we can connect, and how empathy and resilience really can play a role in helping us find our community and find those people that we really connect with and that can help guide us when we're in our darkest day. And then we reach out to that person, right? Hey, you know, I know you're going through something tough. What can you do?
I lost your purpose one more time. We're getting there. So we just covered what this one said.
Okay. Tiny acts of loving kindness. I love this one, right? Talk. How many personal connections do you need a day to not be depressed?
It's different per person.
But there's a set number you must have, a minimum. So I had.
Hello. So, unfortunately, the video cut out at the end there. But I guess you just got to stay tuned for the next one. Stay tuned and hope to see you in person next time. Bye. A Speck of Hope.